I'm going to record this thing.
Names, Pigeon Forge, Piney Flats, Saudi Daisy. I just love the Tennessee names.
Flag Pond.
Yeah, Flag Pond.
This is a story that my mother used to tell me about my grandfather. He was a coal miner and a Baptist minister. In 6 days, Grandpa worked the mine, and on Sunday preached the word divine. He worked like hell in that dark hole and prayed to save the miner's soul. A coal man, iron will, faith of steel. He was born in a central Alabama coal mining town, amid the dust and the mud and the rocks, where the only way in is to be born there and the only way out is in a box. And although his hands were coal-stained, he had been taught to read by King James, raised up on a foundation of faith and family, service to your fellow man, with conviction that the next life waiting is better than the life at hand, better than the poverty and better than the hunger, and free to all who choose it. He was born with a gift of persuasion and called by his God to use it. So just as the blue-black coal that he pulled from the damp, dark earth would be transformed by fire, and in turn transform the cold in the night, he used his words to transform men and bring them from darkness to light. And in that sacred Sunday hour, his words carried so much power that they touched the hearts and the minds of the unsaved, and they turned their backs on their wicked ways and were free. And he brought so many of the lost to the foot of the Savior's cross that the Prince of Darkness himself took note. And in the bowels of purgatory, he called out the head devil of that territory in their weekly staff meeting. I see from this latest report, the devil said with a frown, you're losing souls on that mountain. What's dragging your numbers down? Oh, great Satan, that underdevil cried. It's that coal-mining preacher. He's turning the tide. We've lost lives and traitors and gossips and haters, gamblers and cheaters and wife beaters. We've lost politicians, musicians, rogues and cads and deadbeat dads, and if we don't put a stop to this shits, we might just lose the hypocrites. Well, the devil sighs and rolls his eyes. It's hard to get good help these days. Just for fun, he'll take this one. He'll show these rookies how it's done. Well, sir, the meeting room was completely packed, and so in his disguise, he stood way in the back and he listened as Grandpa spun his holy spell. The joy of heaven, the horror of hell. His frustration grew worse and worse with every call, with every verse. Come home, come home, ye who are weary, come home. To their knees the weary dropped. And Satan knew this must be stopped. And so as Grandpa sang out his final plea, he stepped into the aisle, threw off his cloak, revealed himself, and cried out, Coal man! What about me? Those of you that have never actually seen the face of evil, picture this. Red and scaly, 8 feet tall, with horns and a pitchfork and a long tail, but that ain't all. He looks like fear and doubt and worry and greed and jealousy and hate. He looks like I'm not good enough. You're not good enough. I am better than you. Racism, sexism, politics, the lowest of the low. In short, he looks like ego, and he's hard to look at. Like fear, or staring into a mirror so bright it reveals your every flaw. And so the congregation turned their eyes away, ashamed of what they saw. And the devil stalked down the aisle toward the altar of God, and the stench of brimstone filled the air. And with a cloven hoof he drew a line, and he made his challenge there. Coal man, bow down at my feet. or stand behind the words you preach. But the little man that old Scratch faced was a titan of courage, a giant of faith, purified in a blast furnace called life in the Alabama mud. Coal dust in his lungs, iron in his blood, carbonized by the strength of his will. And when your doubt turns to slag, your faith turns to steel. What makes you tick, what makes you go is not what you believe, it's what you know. And the words of God that banned his fear came straight to his heart and rang loud and clear, just as he speaks to you and me, if only we could hear his greatest promise. Be not afraid, for I am with you always, even into the end of time, even through your darkest night, when your family turns their back through addiction and pain and want and lack. I am there through your greatest fears, and even if Satan himself appears, be not afraid. I am with you always. And no one there could believe their eyes. And Lucifer was sure surprised when Grandpa let out a mighty roar, jumped that altar and lit on the floor, and the right hand of God came up from the ground, squared to his jaw and spun him around. And Grandpa kicked that tail so hard he flew down the aisle and out in the yard with Grandpa close behind. They hit and kicked and scratched and bit, and the devil took the worst of it. He lost his pitchfork back in the church and a few teeth along the way. His horns got bent, his eyes swelled shut, the vision of hell to pay. And before Grandpa was through, he gave that devil his due. Grabbed his tail, slung him round, threw him high, and as he came down, the earth below him opened wide, and flames shot up as he fell inside, and just like that, he was gone. Now the ass whipping that devil took ain't written in no holy book, but when the battle was won, all the witnesses knew. It ain't the size of the demon you face, it's the size of the God in you. Now, on that mountain in the wood, there's a clearing where that church once stood, and a hole that they could never fill, where Satan met faith of steel, cold hand, iron will, faith of steel.
Wonderful. I think we've been churched.